Have you ever wondered why some people seem impossible to predict or outmaneuver? Meet the Sigma, the lone wolf of society who thrives on independence, strategy, and quiet power. Sigmas don't just walk their own path, they make their moves in ways that leave their enemies scratching their heads. Their ability to stay unpredictable and always one step ahead makes them a mystery, even to those who think they know them. In this video, we'll uncover the top 10 ways Sigmas confuse their enemies without even trying. From their unshakable calm under pressure to their knack for flipping the script in unexpected ways, you'll see why Sigmas are not to be underestimated. Let's dive in. 1. They don't react the way people expect. You know that saying, silence speaks louder than words? Well, Sigmas have practically mastered it. They don't give people the satisfaction of an emotional reaction, and honestly, it drives their enemies crazy. Most people, when they're put under pressure or provoked, will either explode, panic, or overthink every little thing. Sigmas? Nah, they're on a completely different wavelength. Imagine this, someone's trying to pick a fight with a Sigma, maybe at work, maybe in their personal life. They're pushing all the usual buttons, trying to get under their skin. But instead of blowing up or breaking down, the Sigma just sits there, calm and collected, like nothing's happening. Maybe they'll raise an eyebrow, maybe they'll give a slight smirk, but that's it. No yelling, no arguing, no dramatic comebacks. And this isn't just about keeping cool, it's a power move. By staying calm, Sigmas flip the script. Their enemies expect chaos, but instead they get nothing. And you know what's worse? That silence forces the enemy to sit with their own emotions. They start overthinking. Why didn't they react? Did I say the wrong thing? Are they planning something? It's like handing someone a loaded gun and then just walking away. They're left holding all this tension while the Sigmas already moved on. The beauty of this approach is that Sigmas understand one simple truth. Reacting emotionally gives other people control. They're not about to hand over that kind of power. Instead, they'll observe, analyze, and if they feel like it, respond when they're ready, not when their enemy wants them to. It's all about playing the long game, and for Sigmas it works every time. 2. They outsmart without showing off. Let's be real. Most people like to show off, but Sigmas, they are different. They're the type of people who will solve a problem, crush a goal, or outmaneuver someone, and you won't even know it was them until later. They've got this quiet intelligence that makes them seem low-key, but in reality they're always 10 steps ahead. Picture this, a team project where everyone's trying to outshine each other. People are throwing around big ideas, making flashy presentations, and generally trying to one-up the competition. Meanwhile, the Sigma is in the background, observing everything, quietly taking notes. They're not saying much, but they're thinking everything. Then, when the time comes, they step in with a solution that's so well thought out, it blows everyone else out of the water. What's so confusing about this is that Sigmas don't play the typical power games. Most people, when they're smart, want everyone to know they're smart. They'll talk big, drop buzzwords, and make sure the spotlight stays on them. But Sigmas, they're more like, why waste energy bragging when I could just let my results do the talking? And that's the trick. They let people underestimate them. By staying humble and low-key, they disarm their enemies. They don't come across as a threat, so no one's watching their moves. Then, when they finally show their hand, it's game over. Their enemies are left stunned, wondering how they got played so effortlessly. 3. They blend in, but stand out. Okay, so this one's kind of like a paradox. How can someone blend in and stand out at the same time? It doesn't make sense, unless you're a Sigma. They have this uncanny ability to move through any crowd, any environment, without ever losing their sense of self. They're adaptable, but not fake, approachable, but still mysterious. Let's say a Sigma walks into a party. They're not the one making a grand entrance or cracking jokes to get everyone's attention. They might start off in the background, maybe grabbing a drink or casually chatting with a couple of people. But here's the thing, even without trying, they become the center of attention. Not because they're loud or flashy, but because they have this natural presence that draws people in. What's even more fascinating is that Sigmas don't try to stand out. They're not there to impress anyone, in fact. They're probably more interested in observing the room than being the life of the party. And yet, by the end of the night, everyone remembers them. Why? Because they're real. In a world full of people trying to be something they're not, that authenticity is magnetic. This adaptability also works in more serious settings. At work, for example, a Sigma might seem like just another team member, blending into the group. But when push comes to shove, they'll step up with ideas or solutions that make everyone take notice. They're like a secret weapon, quiet and unassuming until the moment they decide to shine. And here's why this confuses their enemies. People expect you to either fit in or stand out, not both. But Sigmas don't follow that rule. They can do both effortlessly, which makes them hard to pin down. Are they a team player, a leader, a lone wolf? The answer is all of the above, and that unpredictability keeps their enemies guessing. 4. They operate on their own timeline. Here's one thing about Sigmas. They're not about to let anyone rush them into making a move. Whether it's in their personal life, at work, or even in a heated situation, Sigmas have this incredible ability to slow everything down and move at their own pace. It's not laziness or indecision, it's strategy. Picture this: you're in a meeting and the pressure is on. Everyone's throwing out ideas, trying to impress the boss, or scrambling to find a solution. Meanwhile, the Sigma is just sitting back, quiet, taking it all in. They're not in a rush to jump in or prove themselves, and just when it feels like they're going to sit this one out, they speak up with the kind of insight or plan that stops everyone in their tracks. Sigmas are masters of timing. They don't act just because it's expected. They act when it makes the most sense. In negotiations, for example, they'll let others do most of the talking, watching and listening as everyone else shows their cards. By the time they step in, they already know exactly what needs to be said to turn the situation in their favor. It's not just about winning, it's about winning smart. And this is where it gets confusing for their enemies. Most people feel this constant pressure to act quickly, because let's be real, we live in a world where speed is everything. But Sigmas, they're not playing that game. Their patience throws people off, especially those who rely on quick reactions to gain the upper hand. By the time the enemy realizes what's happening, the Sigma has already flipped the script and taken control. 5. They see through lies instantly. You know how some people just seem to have a sixth sense for spotting BS? That's a Sigma for you. It's like they have a built-in lie detector. Whether it's a shady coworker, a manipulative friend, or even someone trying to pull a fast one on them in a relationship, Sigmas can sniff out dishonesty like it's second nature. Here's the thing, Sigmas aren't just listening to what people say. They're paying attention to how they say it. A slight hesitation, a forced smile, or even a tiny inconsistency in someone's story is enough for them to know something's off. And once they sense it, they're not going to call it out right away. Oh no, they'll play along, giving the liar just enough rope to hang themselves. Imagine this scenario. Someone is trying to manipulate a Sigma, pretending to have their best interests at heart. Maybe it's a co-worker trying to take credit for their work, or a so-called friend fishing for personal information to use against them later. The Sigma, sensing the deceit, doesn't react. Instead, they keep the conversation going, gathering more clues and waiting for the right moment to expose the truth. When that moment comes, they confront the liar with such undeniable evidence that there's no room for excuses. Why does this throw their enemies off so much? Because most liars operate on one simple assumption, that their target won't catch on. But Sigmas don't just catch on. They dismantle the lie completely, leaving the manipulator exposed and scrambling. It's not just a power move, it's a skill that keeps their enemies guessing every time. 6. They're unpredictable in every way. If you've ever tried to predict what a Sigma is going to do next, you probably know how impossible it is. That's because Sigmas value freedom above all else, and that includes the freedom to live life their way. They're not tied down by routines, trends, or what society says they should do, and that makes them a complete wild card. Let's say someone thinks they've figured out a Sigma. Maybe they assume the Sigma is on a typical career path, climbing the corporate ladder, doing what's expected. But then, out of nowhere, the Sigma quits their high-paying job to start a business, write a book, or pursue some passion project that no one saw coming. It's not about being rebellious. It's about staying true to what feels right for them. This unpredictability doesn't stop at career choices either. It shows up in how they handle relationships, challenges, and even day-to-day decisions. One day, they might be fully engaged in a group project, and the next, they're off doing their own thing without a second thought. It's not about being inconsistent. It's about following their instincts, which are often way ahead of everyone else's expectations. Here's why this drives their enemies nuts. Most people rely on patterns to predict behavior. They think, if I push this button, they'll react like this, or if they did X yesterday, they'll probably do Y tomorrow. But Sigmas don't work like that. Their actions are guided by their internal compass, not by external pressure or expectations. And because of that, they're always a step or 10 ahead. Sigmas thrive on their ability to adapt, pivot, and keep people guessing. It's not about being intentionally mysterious, it's just who they are. And in a world that craves predictability, that kind of freedom is not just confusing, it's downright intimidating. 7. They focus on the long game. Most people, they're all about those quick wins, instant gratification, right here, right now. But Sigmas, nah, they're thinking way ahead. While everyone else is busy celebrating small victories or chasing fleeting trends, a Sigma is quietly laying the groundwork for something much, much bigger. Picture this. In a competitive environment, their rivals are out there trying to grab all the attention, putting on a show, and collecting short-term wins. And sure, it might look like they're on top for a while, but the Sigma, they're not rushing to steal the spotlight. Instead, they're in the background, observing, planning, and staying patient. They know that early success often leads to burnout or overconfidence, and they're counting on that. It's like watching a marathon where everyone else is sprinting at the start. The Sigma, they're pacing themselves. They might let others get ahead in the beginning, but as soon as those rivals start to slow down, make mistakes, or run out of steam, the Sigma steps up, fully prepared, with energy to spare. Here's what's wild. This strategy isn't just about competition. It's how they approach life. Sigmas are always thinking about the big picture, whether it's in their career, relationships, or personal goals. They'd rather spend time building something solid that lasts than chasing something flashy that fades, and this throws their enemies off completely. Why? Because most rivals are so focused on winning in the moment that they don't even realize the Sigma's been playing a totally different game all along. By the time they catch on, it's already too late. The Sigma's not just ahead, they're in a league of their own. 8. They keep their true motives hidden. Sigmas are like walking mysteries. You think you know what they're about, but the truth is, you only know what they want you to know. They've mastered the art of keeping their real motives tucked away, and honestly, it's kind of genius. Take this scenario. A Sigma's working on a big project, let's say a business idea. They'll share just enough to seem transparent. Maybe they'll even downplay the idea a little, like it's no big deal. But behind the scenes, they're grinding, perfecting every detail, and setting themselves up for massive success. Then one day, out of nowhere, they launch, and it's a hit. Their competitors are left standing there like, wait, how did we not see this coming? This isn't about being shady, it's about being smart. Sigmas know that if they reveal too much, too soon, they'll attract unnecessary attention or even sabotage. So instead, they keep things low-key. It's not secrecy for secrecy's sake, it's strategy. And let's be real, in a world where oversharing is the norm, this throws people off big time. Most folks expect transparency, especially in competitive situations. They want to know what you're planning so they can prepare their countermoves. But with a Sigma, good luck figuring it out. They'll share just enough to keep you guessing, but their real goals, those are on a need-to-know basis. And guess what? You don't need to know. 9. They turn weaknesses into strengths. Here's something you don't see every day. Sigmas are the type of people who take what others might call a weakness and flip it into one of their biggest assets. It's like their superpower. For example, let's say a Sigma is naturally introverted. A lot of people might see that as a disadvantage in a world that seems to reward extroverts. But a Sigma, they'll lean into it. Instead of trying to be the loudest voice in the room, they'll focus on being the most observant. They become exceptional listeners, picking up on details and insights that others completely miss. That quiet presence? It's not a flaw, it's a strength. Another example? Maybe they're not the most social or outgoing person. Instead of forcing themselves into situations where they don't thrive, they use that time to reflect, plan, and grow. While others are spreading themselves thin trying to please everyone, the Sigma is sharpening their skills, building their confidence, and preparing for the next big move. What makes this so confusing for their enemies is that most people try to hide their weaknesses. They'll bend over backward to appear flawless, often to their own detriment. But Sigmas, they embrace their imperfections. They own them. And by doing so, they turn what could have been a liability into a secret weapon. Think about it. How do you beat someone who's already made peace with their flaws? Someone who's figured out how to turn those flaws into advantages? The answer is, you don't. That's why Sigmas are so hard to outsmart. They've already outsmarted themselves first. 10. They walk away without looking back. Here's something about Sigmas that really throws people off. They have zero tolerance for things that drain their energy. Toxic relationships, drama-filled situations, petty arguments, you name it. If it doesn't serve them, they're out. No long goodbyes, no dramatic speeches, just a quiet, confident exit that says, this isn't worth my time. Imagine this scenario. Someone's been poking at a Sigma, trying to get under their skin, maybe in an argument or a heated debate. The other person is all fired up, expecting the Sigma to fight back, defend themselves, or at least throw a verbal punch. But instead, the Sigma just takes a breath, looks them dead in the eye, and calmly says, I'm done here. Then they walk away. No yelling, no door slamming, just a quiet, definitive exit. Now you can probably guess how that leaves the other person feeling. Completely powerless. They've spent all this energy trying to get a reaction, and for what? The Sigma didn't bite. They didn't give in. And worse, they didn't even care enough to stick around. It's like the ultimate mic drop, but without the theatrics. The beauty of this approach is that it's not about running away or avoiding conflict. Sigmas aren't afraid of confrontation. They just don't see the point in wasting their time on things, or people, that don't matter. Their mindset is simple. Why argue with someone who's committed to misunderstanding me? My energy is better spent elsewhere. And here's why this confuses their enemies. Most people feel this deep need to prove themselves. They want to win the argument, defend their point, or at least get the last word. Sigmas don't care about any of that. To them, walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. It's their way of saying, I don't need to win this because, honestly, it's not even a contest worth having. What's even more baffling is that Sigmas don't look back, like ever. When they decide to walk away, it's done. There's no second guessing, no sneaky texts at 2 a.m., no lingering regrets. They make their decision, stick to it, and move forward without a shred of hesitation. And that level of confidence? It's rare. For enemies, this is downright maddening. They're used to people engaging in the back and forth, clinging to the fight, or at least giving some sign of defeat. But Sigmas? They don't play by those rules. They take their power back by refusing to participate, and in doing so they leave their enemies stuck, angry, confused, and with no way to retaliate. So if you ever see a Sigma walking away from a situation, just know this. It's not because they've lost, it's because they've already won by choosing themselves.